Episode 6 of Ahsoka just dropped. I am very happy. Let's talk about it. Obviously, full spoilers if you haven't seen it yet. I'll just say I really liked the episode, but let's talk details. Also, hi guys, this is Justin. Today's video is sponsored by Vite Ramen. We'll talk about that in a bit. You can find a link to their stuff down in the description and a promo code, but I know they and you are both eager to get started talking, so let's begin. So obviously the two biggest moments of this episode were the reveal, finally, of Grand Admiral Thrawn, and what was for me the unexpected reveal of Ezra Bridger. That latter moment especially I absolutely adored, but I do want to talk about the episode in a somewhat chronological order. With that being said, we're going to start at the beginning. So there was a lot of speculation about what episode 6 of Ahsoka would look like. I thought it was possible we might get one which took place in the main Star Wars galaxy, sort of Hera getting the rebel crew back together, preparing for Thrawn's potential return, then maybe a hint of Thrawn right before the credits, but they went in the entire opposite direction. Every bit of this episode was set either at the beginning, in the belly of a whale, or in the new galaxy at the planet Peridea. And on that note, we now know what Peridea is. It's not the name of the entire galaxy. It's not just the name of the route from Legends. No, it's this single planet, a very interesting and distinct planet. I actually loved what they did here, especially at the beginning. It felt very alien, especially alongside the excellent soundtrack. Just little things like those statues being so narrow and tall and sort of just jutting out of the landscape almost at random. There were lots of really interesting details that had me fully engaged early on, and I mean, that's what you want. We're finally leaving the galaxy, adventuring into a truly unknown place, and I felt like Dave Filoni really delivered. Then of course we meet, well, we don't know exactly what they are. Some relative of the Night Sisters, their progenitor, I guess. But they do seem to be very similar to the Dathomiri witches that we know from the Star Wars galaxy. The main one is referred to as Mother. They're called witches on several occasions. I think it's even possible that Dathomir may be the name of something in that galaxy, perhaps even the witch's name for the planet Peridea. But I thought their voice was really interesting as well. It added to the just strangeness and unreality of the world. At one point, Shin and Balin are talking about it, and it's called a land of dreams, and I thought that was very, very accurate. Why these witches are helping Thrawn out is probably the most interesting question asked by this episode. Not only are they using their powers to communicate with Morgan Elsbeth, but they've also seemingly raised an army from the dead. You see the stormtroopers with the cracked armor. One of the few leaks that we had about this show early on talked about these stormtroopers, even the bands, which are obviously reviving them or healing their injuries in some aspect. And in a very Thrawn-like way, he's got cargo. I figured, just like with the Thrawn trilogy, his campaign was going to start with the collection of assets. This is basically his transit to Mount Tantus, and I'm guessing that those things being wheeled aboard his ship are either clones or more likely dead soldiers which are to be resurrected. I'm guessing the three Night Witches will take the form of Jorah Sabaoth, which does make me wonder about the fate of Balin as well. He makes allusions to there being something very, very bad in the galaxy, perhaps on the planet itself. He can sense it. Shin, she's, I think, cutting herself off, sort of being willfully ignorant, but I'm very curious to see how Ahsoka reacts. I don't know, this is very compelling. Obviously, it's the J.J. Abrams mystery box style. It's super easy to say, oh, there's something very dark and mysterious and a great threat lurking on the horizon. I'm really hoping that they've done the legwork here and have planned how this is going to play out. And what's interesting is that this is one avenue that the show can use to actually impact the Star Wars continuity even after the sequels. If they discover some really big threat that everyone in this galaxy is running from, maybe that's wiped out much of the life in the galaxy, well, that's something that the good guys are going to have to eventually deal with. Now, I don't think it's the Yuuzhan Vong. I certainly don't think it's the Grisk, but I have no idea what it could be. So that's really interesting. Based on the Force, though, something the Yuuzhan Vong and the Grisk definitely were not. The Yuuzhan Vong especially were cut off from the Force. Last thing about the Night Sisters, the first thing I noticed when I saw them was they had different headdresses. The Mother has a single, I don't know, cap, I guess. One of them has two and one of them has none. It really reminded me of sort of a fully dark side version of the Mortis family, especially with the allusion to one being the Mother. Now, this is almost certainly reaching, but I just thought it was kind of an interesting little bit there. But before we continue, we're probably halfway or so through the video, maybe a bit more. I do want to talk about the sponsor, Vite Ramen. Vite Ramen makes so much of what I do on YouTube possible. There are videos that I make that I don't know whether they're going to do well, but because Vite Ramen supports me, I can make them. I can also justify to my wife staying up late to talk about a Star Wars show. But for real, for those who don't know, Vite Ramen makes super high quality noodles. The flavors are excellent. They are very healthy, and they're American made, paying their employees really well. Just a great company to support. The really cool thing about Vite Ramen is that I actually partnered with them to create my own special flavor, Massaman curry. Listen, ask people who've tried it whether they like it. That's all I'll say. Well, I'll also say it's fantastic. We worked so long to make something unique, and it really paid off. All the nutritional information is available online. Many of the ramens have extremely low sodium and lots of bioavailable protein. So if you're interested, you can use the link down in the description and use code Eckharts for not just 10% off, but also some special extra goodies. All right, so let's talk about the introduction of Grand Admiral Thrawn. I thought it was spectacular. The way that the Star Destroyer was seen rising over the alien tower was just phenomenal. And the way the music was cut in the one scene specifically, where it's sort of reverberating in the background, then you get the inside shot of the hangar and it just starts, really, really cool. I didn't really feel like Thrawn would be someone to have his troops chanting his name, but these obviously aren't ordinary troops. They're called specifically Night Troopers. I'm guessing they're reanimated just based on the state of their armor. Also, just watching, I noticed Thrawn called all of the witches great mothers, so I'm just correcting my bit from earlier there. Enoch is obviously extremely interesting. There's something more than just Stormtrooper going on there, I think, but just a spectacular design. Regarding Thrawn himself, I really thought Lars did a great job. I mean, he is Thrawn, no surprise. I wasn't sure, honestly, how it would feel, and I thought he nailed it. One thing about this show is that they're sometimes to a fault sticking to exactly how the characters look in Star Wars Rebels. That includes Hera's contacts, Ezra's eyes as well. He's got contacts to make his eyes look super blue, and I think I probably would have made Thrawn's skin a little darker blue, but I mean, that's such a small, minor concern. I still think he looks great. Some people complained about him looking fat. I thought it was fine. I mean, he is a bit older here. Thrawn's nearly 70 at this point. I don't care about Thrawn's physique. Like, in the novels, he's an intellectual powerhouse. The only time he really gets into any action is when he's stabbed and when he's on Wayland at the very beginning. So I think it's cool. And the mannerisms, everything, perfect. And I think you can tell that fans are happy because some of the people poking fun at him have been doing so relatively lightly. Most concerns are pretty minor at this point. Now, I gotta say, I initially thought they got the Chimera wrong. It looks like an ISD-2, which of course has that distinctive tower. However, I was talking with my friend Corey, and he pointed out that it actually is perhaps a quasi-rebuilt ISD-1 tower as it should be. It's missing some of the support struts. There are some additions made to probably preserve structural integrity, but it's correct. I also like how one of the balls is just barely hanging on. Anyway, it was really cool to see Thrawn interacting with Sabine again. It's kind of interesting to think about what Ezra's been up to. Like, he's been kind of just in the wasteland, maybe doing little attacks on the Empire, or maybe just trying to live. Thrawn is obviously aware of his existence, and he's tracking him somewhat. Ezra kind of seems to just be chilling. Anyway, some cool stuff with Sabine in the wasteland. I thought the conversation between Baylan and his apprentice Shin continues to be very interesting. I'm getting more and more worried that Baylan's story is not going to be wrapped up in a satisfying way, which, I mean, it just stinks. It feels weird to say that you want a character that you like to die, especially when the actor himself is dead. It's morbid, but it's just because I want to see his vision of the character sort of brought full circle. His motives just, I don't know. He seems to want some sort of greater power to stop the cycle of death and destruction that the galaxy seems to constantly go through, but then there's also that dark presence which he discusses, so hopefully we learn more about that before the end of the season because it's very compelling stuff. I thought the indigenous life of the planet was really cool. The Master Splinter-like creature, Ezra's shocked that she can ride it. The little turtles, I believe they were called Noti, and one thing that's interesting is that if you watch with the subtitles on, the creatures that Baylan and Shin meet towards the end of the episode, the mercenaries or survivors really, they speak the same language, so most likely they will help lead to a confrontation next episode where we'll see what Ezra's been working on in his time away from the galaxy. Speaking of Ezra, I loved his reintroduction. I thought it was perfect. The actor not only looks exactly like Ezra, but just nailed all the mannerisms, the dialogue, dialogue. Sometimes it's weird and off-putting when animation comes to life through live action. Sometimes it feels like a cheap grab at people's emotions. No, this I thought was excellent. And I think it's only going to get better as the characters establish themselves more in live action. Like, the first time I saw Sabine, it's like, okay, this is their attempt to ape what they did in the cartoon, but now she just feels like a different vision of the same character. I'm excited to see how Ahsoka and Thrawn really grow into their own as the show progresses. But I mean, that's all I got. Excellent episode, probably my second favorite, maybe my favorite of the season so far. I just love the feeling of this, the alienness. It feels like a new chapter is being opened, and I'm very excited to see where it leads. There's a bunch of things I didn't even talk about. Shin's got some stuff going on. The Night Sisters calling Sabine it, I thought was really funny. But yeah, I know some people will be frustrated that Ahsoka's not in the show, but although the show is titled Ahsoka, like, it's not all about her. It's not the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, which I think fans were a bit more understandably frustrated at regarding his lack of presence at times. Before we go, I've started a new fun thing on Twitter where I give Ahsoka spoilers truly without context. Like, sometimes people do it and you can immediately tell what's going on even if you've not watched the episode. I figured it'd be fun if I explained what it meant in the video. The Cheerio is meant to represent the Eye of Sion. The little gnome is meant to represent all the weird statues. Master Splinter is meant to be that creature. And the slug, probably my best, was a reference to Ezra calling himself multiple times Jabba the Hutt in Star Wars Rebels. I also did that for Ahsoka episode 4, I believe. The boxing guy was a reference to Hu Yang fighting that assassin droid. The pocket sand was when Shin basically threw the smoke bomb at Sabine. Boo is the ghost, because the ghost was in it. And Goatsy, the Justin Wang video, is also a reference to the Eye of Sion. If you don't understand it, do not search what that is. I'm like, it's graphic. I warned you. If you're curious, that's on you, not on me. But that's it. Thanks for watching. One more shout out to Vite Ramen for sponsoring this video. Again, check the link down in the description and use code ECKHARTS for 10% off and some special goodies. I'll see you guys very, very soon.